Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Health Optimizing Royal Retreat near Cape Town. I am Dr. Helen Muir. I'm the Medical Director of Health Optimizing, and this is Thomas Aksnes, the Founder and Scientific Director of Health Optimizing Worldwide.
So let us explain to you what it is we do here at Health Optimizing. So we're starting out with assessments because we need to find out exactly what it is that we need to resolve to help you in the best possible way with your health.
So in this first room, we will be doing assessments to ascertain cellular function and cardiac status. We will then also be digging in deeper where we find abnormalities and we'll be able to investigate further.
So in this room, we are using 8 different technologies, all gold standard technologies, which means that they are the most accurate for what it is that they're testing. So we're using 8 technologies to find out about the function of all the different organ systems and actually all the important physical and biochemical functions of the body, even down to a cellular level to find out how the cells are functioning and exchanging ions, etc. So this is a much more comprehensive assessment than what you can get at any normal medical clinic. So let us show you the next assessment room.
So in this assessment room, the doctor will be doing further assessments to ascertain triggers and causes that could be underlying the client's dysfunction.
So there's always a potential for optimizing health, but we all have different factors that we can optimize to basically thrive, to stay healthy, to avoid getting other health problems. And we can find out what those factors are. We can see where the potential for improvement is. And for those who have health problems, we need to acknowledge that health problems doesn't happen just for no reason. There's always a combination of causations. There are underlying causations that make it possible to develop. Genetic factors is in that category, but there are also many other underlying causations, and usually there's a combination of them. There's also trigger factors, something that is triggering that development of the health problems, and even there's usually a combination of factors. And a lot of times there are also other things that we need to deal with to improve the capacity for regulation. So our whole model is that we deal with every situation at a causative level, mapping out all the different causative factors, and then we address those before we then start doing specific treatments. And to be able to map those out, that's why we have all these high-tech methodologies. We have 32 technologies in total from all over the world. It's all the latest state-of-the-art technologies so that we can map out so many pieces of the bigger jigsaw puzzle that we can see the overall picture. So after measuring about 20,000 factors, we have a pretty good idea what's going on with your health. And sometimes we see that there is some additional factors that we need to also find out more about.
So here we will be assessing chronic inflammation because, as we know, that underpins most chronic diseases. The thermographer will be using the latest technologies in medical thermography to assess you.
So then we will be using HD medical thermography with the same resolution as what is used in hospitals. And we can see with really high precision local infections such as under a tooth or anywhere else in the body. We can have organ overlays to see how this is matching the different organs. Once we find something that we need to know more about, then we have additional types of thermography where we can measure specific points. We can do a cool down process and see how it reacts. So we can find out much more than what you can with a normal thermography. Another example of additional assessments that we can do when we see that there is a need for that is the assessments that we can do for the digestive system.
In this room we have the Heidelberg Diagnostic System. It is a first in Africa and enables us to acquire a lot of information about the function of the stomach.
So with this test you will be swallowing a digital capsule, and this will measure everything that is going on in the stomach. So we can find the fasting stomach acid pH, we can find the amount of acid, we can find the production capacity of it, we can find the valve functions, we can see when the stomach tries to empty itself, and there's a whole range of factors that we can really map out. And this is also one of our many gold standard tests, which means that this is the most accurate test that exists today to measure those parameters. So if you'll follow us to the next room here, we also have amazing technologies to evaluate psychological factors. And we have to acknowledge that even with physical and biochemical problems, there's often a psychosomatic component to it.
Here at Health Optimizing, the psychologist will use high-tech technologies to assess underlying psychosomatic and psychological problems.
So the technologies we're using, one is that when our psychologist is having a dialogue with you, you will be speaking into this microphone and we can find out what emotions are behind what you are saying. And then we can also look for specific patterns that are correlated with specific types of childhood programmings, traumatic things that haven't been resolved properly. So we can really tap into the potential of optimizing also the psychological health, as well as to deal effectively with a psychosomatic component that may or may not be relevant for a physical health problem. At the same time as we're doing that assessment, we're also regulating brain waves with this technology over here. We are also stimulating specific centers in the brain to be more active, and we can trigger subconscious processes so that the problems can be more comprehensively resolved, having every part of the intrinsic mechanisms involved with doing their very best at resolving it. And what our psychologists that we attract to work here in the health optimizing clinics, what they typically tell us is that now they can do in just 1 or 2 sessions what would typically take them 1 to 2 years with regular sessions to achieve. So once we have fully mapped out all the factors that we need to find out to help you the best possible way, then we start addressing these factors one by one. First, all the causative factors.
So here we are going to be treating pathogens that could be an underlying trigger or cause for your problem.
So the way we treat pathogens here is not with antibiotics. We use a much faster methodology with a specific plasma light pulsating with exact molecular movements of a certain pathogen. So we basically destruct them through the principle of resonance. You may have heard that you can shatter a crystal glass by singing a high C. So this is the same principle. You have a resonance effect where you can destruct something, and in this case, pathogens, microorganisms that we need to get rid of. And also doing it that way, there is no risk of harming any of the good microorganisms that we're supposed to have in the body. Actually, in the healthy body, you're supposed to have about 10 times more microorganisms than cells. We don't want to hurt those. All the causative factors that we have found in the assessment, we will deal with each and every one of them with the best methodology that is available in the world today.
So here in this room, we will be addressing vascular problems.
This is a machine that creates nitric oxide gas, and nitric oxide is the single most important factor for cardiovascular health, or at least they won a Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1998, those who came to that conclusion. Whenever there's a vascular problem, there's always a combination of factors, like with every other type of health problem. But this is a lot of times the most important factor, and especially for diabetics who have a high cardiovascular risk. The main correlation between that is that diabetes suppresses nitric oxide. And that is also the reason why diabetics often can have ulcers that won't heal. And the worst case scenario is that they even have to amputate a leg. That's simply because of the lack of nitric oxide, making that ulcer not impossible to heal. And then when it's not healing, there will be an infection eventually, and then you're really into trouble. So this is a machine that we also use for the diabetic ulcers in combination with addressing the other factors involved with that type of problem. So if you'll follow me all the way down the hall now. So physically, your body is comprised of cells. And we are even, during our assessment, looking into the most important factors for the function of those cells. So one of the factors that is absolutely crucial for the cells to function normally is the cell voltage, the dielectric properties of the cell membranes.
So in this room, we will be treating the cell's cell voltage to improve cellular function.
So we have a machine here that is creating nanopulses of a field with 27,000 volts, and we use that to improve the cellular voltage, which ideally should be minus 90 millivolt, and if it's less than minus 70, it will compromise the function of the cells. So this is the only technology that exists today to actually upregulate that cellular voltage so that the cells are able to regulate ions properly, which again is absolutely crucial for the cells to be able to produce energy. For the mitochondria, the power plant of the cells, to be able to produce ATP, and for every 8th step of the energy conversion in the cell, this is a factor that needs to be dealt with.
And then once we have used this technology, we will be showing you the technology that you will use follow on from this.
So the technology that we just showed you also has a huge potential for speeding up injury repair. And even old injuries can often be stimulated to repair again by just getting the cell voltage back up. And in this room, we are going to utilize that cell membrane functionality to also now get the cells to function normally again.
So in this room, we have 2 mats that we are going to use to improve cell regulation.
So what these are doing is that it is creating a field which is synchronizing with the exchange of ions over the cell membranes. So whatever the function is in the cell that is not as it should be, then there's always a correlating exchange of ions according to the situation. So with this machine, we can regulate that the way it should be. So since we then first got the cell voltage potential corrected, then the effects that we are creating here will also be able to hold. So for any type of health problem where there's also an influence on the cellular level, this is a very, very important factor to deal with. And these mats, they are computerized, and there's a lot of different programs. So based on the assessment, we will use exactly the right patterns that we need to regulate those aspects of the ionic concentration that we need to do. But what we also have with these mats is a possibility to use it just for optimization on a daily basis, with then a standard program that just regulates the energy in the cells, the exchange of ions, and even the microcirculation in the body.
So in combination with the health optimizing cell regulation mats, we have other technologies to improve oxygenation, and this sci-fi looking machine over here to improve brain function.
So with this machine, we are creating a special light that is filtered in slots of less than 14 nanometers, and it actually penetrates 5 to 8 centimeters into the skull. It's completely non-invasive, but what it does is that it makes the dendrites almost double the activity. So dendrites, that's the nerve endings where you're connecting all the dots so you can make sense of information in the brain. You can actually even score higher on an IQ test after just 10 minutes on this machine. But what we use it for is a pre-treatment, so that when we afterwards going to stimulate different types of activity in the body, there's more capacity to do that. We're always looking for those combinations where 1 + 1 = 11. So the combination that we use of technologies are much more powerful used in the right sequence and in the right way than just as a standalone. So these are some of the examples of how we address the causative factors that we found. And once all the causations are addressed, then there is a potential for the body to actually regulate the way it should. That's when we can get things to function again.
So in this last treatment room, we are going to be using technology to stimulate the body's self-healing and self-regulating mechanisms.
So we have a technology here where you will be connected with different types of electrodes on your head, and we will strap you up, and we'll be able to send signals into your body to specifically trigger self-healing and self-regulating mechanisms based on what we've found that is not functioning right from the assessment. So we need to first fix the causations, because that is why the body couldn't fix this in the first place. We have these amazing self-healing, self-regulating mechanisms, so this in theory shouldn't even be necessary to do, unless when we overload those mechanisms, when there are too many factors, too many problems that together create a problem. Then we need to fix those causations first to create a capacity, and then we have to get the body to start working on it again. Because once the body has been trying to regulate something, to heal something with the intrinsic mechanisms, and this turned out to be too difficult because there were too many or too big causative factors, then these intrinsic mechanisms basically give up. Like your body will just leave the problem alone and focus on other things. And that is called adaptation. And once you've adapted to something, then it becomes chronic. And actually today, half the population in the Western world have chronic problems. So this is a very, very common phenomenon that the body, despite having mechanisms to fix something, will give up because those mechanisms are completely overloaded. So once we dealt with the causative factors, now we have the potential to actually trigger them again. And we do that by, in a way, hacking your own mechanisms. We use bioidentical signals to what your brain used to trigger this, and now we can directly activate these different mechanisms. So that gave you a quick run through of the processes here. First, we find out what's not functioning right, we find out about all the causative factors, then we address each and every factor with the best methodology available today, most of them high-tech. And then we trigger your body to start functioning the way that it's intended to. Sometimes we have to repeat this whole process. It depends on the level of severity. But what we aim for is to fully restore your own self-healing, self-regulating mechanisms to be able to take it from there, so that when you're exposed to new challenges, you will have the capacity to do that. And that is also where lifestyle comes in. So in our assessment, we can also find out where there is a potential for improvement in your lifestyle, so that the changes you make will really count. And here at the Health Optimizing Royal Retreat, there's also a retreat functionality where there is the healthy food, an amazing environment to be in. There's a spa. We have a bioenergy center. So here we're bringing in also every aspect when it comes to lifestyle, and to be able to do these treatments in a stress-free environment where everything is optimized on all levels. So the other health optimizing clinics have the same technologies, they can do the same treatments, but they don't have the retreat functions that we have here at the Health Optimizing Royal Retreat. It's called Santé in Cape Town.